All right, in this video, I am going to share with you three of the top reasons people turn to binging. Whether you're battling bulimia, binge eating disorder, or even restriction that ultimately ends up in binging, these are the three reasons. And as I share these, I want you to be asking yourself, what's at play for me? Is it one, two, or all three of them? All right, without further ado, let's get right into it. Number one is there is restriction at play. Now, you might think restriction is just not eating enough. Let me tell you how else restriction can show up because the eating disorders are shapeshifters and they're sneaky, and restriction isn't always what it seems. So, again, if there's any restriction, ultimately it's going to lead to binging, not a matter of if, just a matter of when that pendulum swings if you're struggling with binge eating. All right, so restriction can look like not eating enough, of course, at meal times. It can look like going too long between meal times. So if you're going longer than 2.5, 3 hours between meals and snacks, that can be restriction. It can look like eating the same foods every day and not getting enough variety and nutrients that your body needs. Also, restriction. And finally, one of the ways that we see restriction, which leads to binging, is when we have foods that are off limits, right? Of course, there are some of you who have real health issues and you can't eat a certain category of food. This is not for you. But if you're not eating things because the eating disorder is telling you it's not quote unquote healthy or good for you, I encourage you to challenge that because ultimately that voice is contributing to the binge cycle. So if you're not eating carbs or gluten or dairy or meat or whatever it is, and again, the reason is because it's quote unquote bad for you, not for some ethical reason, I encourage you to challenge it because it's another form of restriction. All right, let's get to number two. Number two, or the second reason we find ourselves turning to food, is we're numbing some sort of unwanted emotions or feelings. We're trying to escape the uncertainty in life, the stress or anxiety. For a lot of people, anxiety is at the center, and the eating disorder is a coping mechanism to deal with the anxiety. And so, if you are somebody who turns to binging in times when you're tired, and bored, and stressed, and overwhelmed, and frustrated, this is something that you want to address. That means number two is going to be at play for you, meaning you want to numb those unwanted emotions. So even if you're trying to numb boredom and being tired or exhausted, this is something you want to address and a pattern you want to recognize. All right, let's get to the last one. The third reason people find themselves binging is it becomes habitual. That's right, it becomes ingrained into who we are or our daily routine. We've become conditioned to turn to comfort in what's familiar rather than sit in the discomfort in what's unfamiliar and uncomfortable. So if number three is at play for you, well, maybe I'll make another video. I'm curious, leave a comment below. What's at play for you? Is it restriction? Is it numbing some unwanted emotion? Or do you feel like it's just simply habitual, meaning this is part of your day, part of what you've been doing for so long that it's hard to break? All right, thanks for sharing down below.